Did you know that we make over 35,000 decisions every single day? From what to wear, to career choices, to managing finances, our lives are built on thousands of choices, big and small. But here's the catch. Most of these decisions aren't as logical as we'd like to think. Instead, they're shaped by biases and mental shortcuts that we're not even aware of. Imagine you're buying a new car, picking an investment, or making a major life decision. Now imagine that, without realizing it, you're relying on a fast, impulsive part of your brain that's prone to error, often leading to decisions you'll regret. If you don't learn to recognize and manage these biases, you'll keep falling into the same traps, overestimating your abilities, fearing the wrong risks, or letting first impressions cloud your judgment. But here's the good news. By the end of this summary, you'll have the tools to understand and control these mental pitfalls. You'll learn how to slow down, challenge your instincts, and make choices that truly align with your goals. Stick around, and you'll gain a clear, practical guide to thinking smarter, making better decisions, and achieving the results you really want. Welcome to the book summary of Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman. This summary is written and narrated by JANKY Mind. Part 1. 2 systems. Did you ever make a snap decision that felt totally right, only to regret it later? Or maybe you've taken forever to decide on something as simple as dinner? Kahneman shows us that these decisions come from 2 systems in our mind. System 1 is fast, impulsive, and often biased, while System 2 is slower, analytical, and logical. The catch? We tend to rely too much on System 1, even when we should pause for careful thought. The solution? To make better decisions, recognize when to engage System 2 over System 1, especially for choices that have lasting consequences. Here's how to use both systems effectively. 1. Pause before acting on a strong impulse. Kahneman explains, slowing down is one of the best ways to involve System 2. Imagine you're about to make an impulse purchase, like a new pair of shoes you don't need but instantly love. Instead of buying them right away, try counting to 10, stepping away, or even waiting until the next day. This simple pause allows System 2 to step in and consider questions like, do I really need these? Or are they worth the cost? Adding this extra layer of thought can often lead to better, more deliberate choices. 2. Notice patterns in your quick decisions. Take note of areas in your life where System 1 tends to dominate. For example, maybe you're quick to buy things on sale without thinking them through. Try setting a rule like, I'll wait a day before buying anything not on my shopping list. Kahneman suggests that these small rules act as triggers for System 2, making us think twice before acting. By having that extra day to reflect, you might decide that the item isn't necessary after all. 3. Use System 2 for significant decision-making tasks. For more critical choices, such as career moves or investments, get System 2 involved by making a pros and cons list. Kahneman says, writing out your thoughts can help System 2 engage. For example, if you're deciding between 2 job offers, list important factors like growth opportunities, company culture, commute, and salary. Having these details side by side helps System 2 weigh each factor carefully, reducing the likelihood of making a decision based solely on an emotional pull, like a higher salary that might not bring long-term satisfaction. Part 2. Heuristics and biases. Have you ever noticed how a single piece of information can color your whole perception, even if it's not entirely relevant? Kahneman reveals that our minds rely on heuristics, mental shortcuts that help us make decisions quickly. However, these shortcuts often lead to biases that can distort our judgment. Common examples include the anchoring effect, where we overly rely on the first piece of information, and the availability heuristic, where we judge the likelihood of something based on how easily examples come to mind. The solution: recognize these biases and actively challenge them to make more objective and balanced choices. Here's how to recognize and challenge biases. 1. Set your own anchor before hearing others' opinions. Before entering situations like negotiations, decide on your target outcome first. Kahneman notes, anchoring yourself first will make you less susceptible to outside influence. For example, if you're negotiating a salary, set a specific number in your mind before hearing any offer from the employer. If you know you're aiming for $60,000, you're less likely to be swayed if they start with a lower figure like $50,000. This initial anchor keeps your expectations grounded in your goals. Number 2, challenge easy to recall examples. Ask yourself if the example that comes to mind is truly typical or simply vivid. Kahneman explains, we often overestimate the likelihood of events that make strong impressions. For instance, if a recent plane crash in the news makes you nervous about flying, look up actual statistics on air travel safety. System 2 can then counter System 1's instinctual fear by showing that flying is statistically safer than driving. This approach helps reduce the impact of the availability bias. Number 3, expand your examples. Avoid making decisions based on one story or a single anecdote. Imagine you're considering an investment because a friend had success with it. Kahneman advises, seek out additional perspectives and facts before deciding. Instead of jumping in, research the investment's performance over time and look at broader trends in that market. By gathering more examples and perspectives, you help System 2 form a more balanced, realistic view of the investment, rather than relying on one positive story. Part 3, overconfidence. Have you ever felt completely sure of an outcome, only to find out later just how wrong you were? Kahneman discusses overconfidence as our tendency to place too much trust in our own knowledge and predictions. This can lead to issues like the planning fallacy, where we underestimate the time, cost, or complexity of a project. Overconfidence can result in missed deadlines, unpreparedness, and even financial losses. The solution: combat overconfidence by critically assessing your plans and seeking input from others. Here's how to stay grounded in your plans. 1. Look at past outcomes for similar projects. Before diving into a new project, reflect on similar projects you've done and how accurate your original estimates were. Kahneman says, we tend to remember our successes, but forget the unexpected challenges. For example, if a previous home renovation took 3 months longer than expected, factor that into your next renovation plan. Reviewing past results provides a more realistic view, helping you avoid overestimating your efficiency or resources. 2. Ask for an outsider's perspective. Seek input from someone who isn't emotionally attached to your project. Kahneman suggests an outsider can spot flaws that you may overlook. For instance, if you're organizing a large event, ask a colleague who wasn't involved in the initial planning to review your timeline and budget. They might notice missing steps or areas where you could be underestimating costs. An objective opinion helps temper overconfidence, grounding your plans in a broader, less biased view. 3. Estimate with a range. Instead of setting firm deadlines, give yourself a realistic time range. Kahneman's research shows that setting a range for completion reduces the pressure of overpromising. For example, if you believe a project will take 2 weeks, say 2 to 3 weeks, instead of giving an exact end date. If you're planning a move, consider a range of 3 to 5 days rather than a fixed day. This flexibility allows you to account for unexpected issues, reducing the impact of the planning fallacy and giving you a more accurate timeline. Part 4, choices. Why does losing something often feel so much worse than the joy of gaining something similar? Kahneman explains this through loss aversion, our tendency to feel losses more intensely than gains. This bias can prevent us from taking beneficial risks like investing or changing jobs because we're too focused on what we might lose rather than what we could gain. The solution: to make better decisions, balance emotional reactions with logical assessment, and focus on long-term benefits. Here's how to manage loss aversion in your choices. 1. Weigh potential gains and losses equally. Before making a decision, write down what you could gain and what you risk losing, and evaluate both with equal weight. Kahneman emphasizes, count all pros and cons equally, not just the potential losses. For example, if you're thinking about switching jobs, list the new opportunities like career growth or increased salary alongside what you'll leave behind, familiar routines or colleagues. Seeing gains and losses side by side helps prevent loss aversion from swaying your decision unfairly. Number 2, start with small risks. To become more comfortable with risk-taking, try starting with small, manageable risks. For instance, if fear of financial loss has kept you from investing, start by investing a small amount that you're willing to lose. Kahneman's research found that people who took smaller steps toward risk were more likely to continue investing successfully. Starting small can build confidence, showing you that taking a risk doesn't have to mean losing big. 3. Think long term. When considering a decision, ask yourself, how will I feel about this choice in 5 years? Kahneman notes that projecting into the future helps reduce the immediate impact of loss aversion. For example, if you're considering a major relocation, picture how it might impact your life and career over the long term, rather than focusing on the immediate discomfort of change. This perspective helps you see the potential benefits beyond the initial sacrifice, making it easier to make decisions that align with your goals. Part 5. Two Selves. How often do we judge an experience based on a high or low moment, rather than considering the experience as a whole? Kahneman introduces the concept of the experiencing self and the remembering self. The experiencing self lives in the present, while the remembering self evaluates past experiences based on peak moments and how they ended, a concept known as the peak end rule. This often leads us to make future decisions based on selective memories rather than the full experience. The solution: to improve long-term satisfaction, design experiences that appeal to both the experiencing and remembering selves. Here's how to use the peak end rule effectively. 1. Create positive highlights. Plan meaningful moments or peaks within an experience. Kahneman notes, people don't recall every moment. They remember highs and lows. For example, if you're hosting a workshop, add a special interactive segment that attendees will find memorable and engaging. By creating intentional peaks, you give your audience something positive to recall later, which will shape how they remember the event. 2. Finish on a high note. The end of an experience plays a powerful role in how we remember it, so aim for a pleasant or memorable conclusion. Kahneman's studies show that we remember the end vividly, so a good finish leaves a lasting impression. If you're organizing a vacation, plan something enjoyable on the last night, like a relaxing dinner or a favorite activity. This positive ending will influence how you remember the trip overall. 3. Reflect on experiences to balance highs and lows. When evaluating an experience, try to remember both the good and challenging parts to create a balanced view. For instance, if you're assessing a job, consider both the achievements and struggles to get an accurate sense of the experience. Kahneman emphasizes a full view of our experiences requires both perspectives, not just the extremes. This balanced reflection helps you make decisions based on a complete picture rather than just peak moments or endings. Final takeaway. In Thinking Fast and Slow, Kahneman reveals that our minds have two ways of thinking, one that's fast and impulsive, and another that's slower and more deliberate. While our mental shortcuts and quick judgments help us get through the day, they also lead to biases that can trip us up, like overconfidence, fear of loss, or making decisions based on fleeting impressions. The big takeaway? By becoming aware of these mental habits, we can take control of our choices, slowing down when it matters, questioning first impressions, challenging biases, balancing our reactions to gains and losses, and designing experiences that leave better memories are steps that help us make wiser decisions. Ultimately, this book isn't just about understanding how we think. It's about learning to think better and make decisions that truly serve us in the long run. About the author. Daniel Kahneman is a renowned psychologist and Nobel laureate, celebrated for his groundbreaking work in the fields of psychology and behavioral economics. Born in 1934 in Tel Aviv, Kahneman's early experiences as a child in Nazi-occupied France deeply influenced his interest in human behavior and judgment. He went on to earn a PhD in psychology from the University of California, Berkeley. Together with his longtime collaborator, Amos Tversky, Kahneman conducted influential research on cognitive biases and decision-making, fundamentally changing how we understand the mind's workings. Their work laid the foundation for behavioral economics, challenging the idea that humans always make rational decisions. In 2002, Kahneman received the Nobel Prize in Economic Sciences for his insights into human judgment and decision-making. His book, Thinking Fast and Slow, distills decades of research into a compelling exploration of how our minds operate. Kahneman's ideas continue to shape fields as diverse as economics, business, psychology, and beyond, making him one of the most influential thinkers of our time. We've reached the end of this audiobook summary, created by JANKY Mind, your reliable guide to learning and growth. Please like, comment, and share your insights on the book. Thank you for listening.